Welcome to today's class on Basic Microbiology. Our topic today is on biogeochemical cycles, and we'll be dealing with different aspects of these cycles, starting from water cycle to oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen cycles. And in the next class, we shall be looking at other relevant cycles. Now, let's look at definition of terms in terms of Earth's major sphere. We have the atmosphere. We have to explore the interconnected layers that make up our planet's physical and biological system. The atmosphere, which is the invisible yet vital blanket of gases that surround the Earth, is composed primarily of nitrogen, which is about 78%, and oxygen, which is around 21%, and they are essential for life. In addition, the atmosphere contains trace gases like carbon dioxide, neon, helium, and other elements and gases which play critical roles in processes such as climate regulations and photosynthesis. This layer protects us from harmful solar radiation and help maintain the planet temperature. Then we have the hydrosphere. The hydrosphere is the watery layer of the Earth, and it comprises of all the water found on the hard surface. This includes the ocean, river, lakes, glaciers, and groundwater. So water in the hydrosphere is constantly moving through the water cycle: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and so on. Then we have the lithosphere. The lithosphere is the rigid part of the outer space, outermost shell of the Earth. It is the solid outer part of the Earth, and it includes the crust and the uppermost part of the mantle, forming the solid ground beneath our feet. The lithosphere includes brittle upper portion of the mantle and the crust, the outermost layer of the earth structure, the rocky parts, the mountains, and the triggering earthquakes. Then we have the biosphere. The biosphere is the zone of life, is a global ecosystem that composed of living organisms, which is the biota, and the abiotic, which is the non-living part. It includes all living organisms, from microscopic bacteria to macroscopic organisms such as trees and humans. The biosphere interacts dynamically with other spheres, drawing energy and nutrients to sustain the ecosystem across the globe. So, biogeochemical cycles, when we talk about biogeochemical cycle, we're talking about the Earth as a closed system. The Earth operates in a closed system, meaning that the matter rarely enters or leaves. All the matters in the Earth system are within the Earth system. The only exception are small amounts of cosmic debris such as meteoroids that occasionally penetrate the atmosphere. In contrast, energy from the sun flows freely into and out of the system, driving the weather, climate, and biological processes. So the elements of life within this closed system contain all essential elements required for chemical reaction and life support. This includes hydrogen, and which include carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and all forms of other elements which are required, including sulfur and phosphorus. They form the biogeochemical cycles. And the biogeochemical cycle are the pathway through which these chemical elements move through the biosphere, lithosphere, atmosphere, and the hydrosphere. So we call them biogeochemical cycles because they involve biological processes such as respiration and photosynthesis, geological processes such as erosion and sedimentation, and chemical processes such as oxidation and decomposition. So the biogeochemical cycle composes of these three major aspects: the biological processes, the geological processes, and the chemical processes. Together, this process ensures that matter is recycled and reused rather than being lost into the environment. There are other elements in motion. Many elements cycle continuously through ecosystem, passing through organisms via development and growth, metabolic activity, and decomposition. So we have the air, which include gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide. We also have the water, which dissolve into ocean, lakes, and rains. We also have the soil, which is absorbed by plant and broken down by microbes. Some of these are trace elements needed in small quantities. So in the soil, elements are absorbed by plants and broken down by microorganisms, and some are needed in small quantity. We call them microelements. Example, we have the iron, the zinc, and the copper, but they still play vital roles in biological function. The microelements are the major one we're talking about in biogeochemical cycle, which is nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and phosphorus, and others. So they are the key element for life. When you talk about carbon form the backbone of organic molecules such as protein, DNA, and also part of the diet, carbohydrate. And nitrogen also is essential for amino acid and nucleic acid formation, which is essential for every living organism. Then we have the oxygen, which is vital for respiration and water molecules. Then we have the hydrogen, which is found in water and organic compound. Phosphorus, which serves as the key component of the DNA and RNA and ATP. Then we have the sulfur, which is important for protein structure and enzyme function. These elements cycle through Earth's surface in processes like the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and phosphorus cycles. Each of them play a unique role in sustaining life in the ecosystem. Now, energy and matter in ecosystem is very important. To truly grasp how ecosystem function, we must understand the dual importance of energy and matter. Both are essential for life, but they behave very differently within biological system. The role of energy is in driving all biological activity in form of ATP. Every organism, from the tiniest microorganism to the largest mammal, depends on energy to grow and reproduce, maintain their internal balances, carry out their metabolic process. However, unlike matter, energy flows in one direction in ecosystem. That is, it enters as a sunlight and is transformed by producer like plants and eventually dissipates as heat. So the energy flows in one direction. Energy is not converted, energy is acquired and displaced. Beyond energy, there's a need for matter. While energy is vital for every organism, they also require physical substances to survive. These physical substances include water, which is for the hydration, chemical reaction, and transport. They also require minerals like calcium, potassium, and iron for structural and metabolic functions. They also require life-sustaining compounds such as carbohydrate, protein, and nucleic acid. Interestingly, over 90% of human body and most other organisms are composed of just 4 elements. So these elements are what we are looking at in our biogeochemical cycles essentially. The first biogeochemical cycle we are looking at is the water cycle. All living things require water to survive, and water is essential for every living organism. In water cycle, which is also known as hydrological cycle, we have the major key steps in water cycle. The first being the evaporation. It is a process where the sun heats up water in ocean, lakes, and rivers, and this causes the water to turn into vapor and rise into the air. Then we also have transpiration. Transpiration is the process whereby plants release water vapor through tiny pores in their leaves, and this vapor also rises to the atmosphere, joining the evaporated water to condense, that leads to the condensation. Condensation, as the water vapor ascends, it cools and forms tiny droplets. These droplets clusters together to create the clouds. When the cloud is full, then we have the precipitation. The precipitation becomes heavy with water droplets. The water falls back to the earth, and this can be in form of rain in tropical environment and snow in other area, or sleet, or form as hail or hailstorm. We also have the runoff and collection. Runoff and collection are the precipitated water that flows over the land surface as runoff. They also return back to the river or the lake or the ocean. Some water seep into the ground, replenishing the underground aquifers, and they also find their way back into the ocean. And back again, the sun evaporates the water, and the cycle continues and on and on. The mechanism of water cycle. The mechanism of water cycle, as the sun heats up the water, we have the oceans. The solar radiation plays a vital role in this aspect, in the sense that the solar radiation helps to heat up the water in the ocean and other water bodies. This energy initiates evaporation, turning liquid into vapor. This is the first mechanism, and the solar play a critical role in ensuring that the water cycle continues. Then we have the atmospheric movement. All current air current, they help in carrying the vapor across distances, and the wind current help in spreading the moisture, especially over land masses. So the atmospheric movement, which includes the air current, help to disperse the vapor across the distance, leading to condensation, which arises as a vapor into the atmosphere, and it cools and condenses into clouds. The cloud formation marks the start of the potential rainfall. When the clouds are formed, then the next thing is for the water to precipitate on the surface, precipitate in the atmosphere and begin to form water droplets in clouds, which grows and falls to the earth as rain, as I explained earlier. This state replenish freshwater supplies on the surface. Then, as the water comes down, we have the surface runoff, which is the the rainwater that flow as streams, river, and drain back into the ocean. This movement completes one major loop of the cycle. Then we also have the transpiration, which is the way at which plants lose water. Plants absorb water from the soil and release water vapor through leaves. It also contributes to atmospheric moisture level, and it adds water into the atmosphere. Then we also have the evaporation from land via the action of the solar energy. This evaporation takes care of water from the lakes, river, even produce send water vapor back into the sky. Together with transpiration, this form evapotranspiration. And then we have infiltration of water. Some water seep into the soil and become soil water. Like I said earlier, this underground reservoir supports plant and ecosystem that lives under the ground. Then we have the groundwater movement, which are water which are stored deeper below and becomes underground water, which can also return to the surface via spring, or can be found in well water, or they can keep moving down and drain into the large water body. This mechanism water cycle comprises of these major aspects, and they form the part of the stages at which water moves from one aspect and one stage and then return back, and the cycle continues. The benefit of water cycle. What are the benefits of water cycle? The earth produces a lot of living things such as plants, animals, and so on. So the earth population do not need to produce water that will satisfy all these. All these depends on water that is available. So the earth do not need to produce water that the water also provide for population of living organisms like plants and animals, also help, for us to have access to fish that we eat because fish live inside the water. Then the evaporation and infiltration help to remove impurities from the water because water that goes up from evaporation are naturally pure. Then it also helps to regulate the temperature of the earth. The earth is usually warm, but whenever there is rain, the temperature is regulated. So the benefit of water cycle is as presented. Then we look at oxygen cycle. Oxygen is another important element of life. Oxygen makes up about 20% of the Earth's atmosphere, lower than nitrogen, which is about 79 to 80%. Oxygen is crucial for respiration in animals and humans, and is inhaled and used to produce energy through cellular respiration in living organisms. Oxygen exists in form of ozone, which has the formula of O3, a special form of oxygen that is found in the stratosphere. It shields life on Earth by absorbing the harmful UV rays from the sun. So we also have the other oxide of oxygen, which I believe you must have been taught in your chemistry. Oxygen also exists in form of water. It combines with two hydrogen atoms to form water. And water is vital for ecosystem, agriculture, and all known forms of life. As a matter of fact, we just finished talked about water cycle. So let's look more about oxygen. Let's dive into the intricacies about oxygen cycles and let's know more about this. So we have the physical properties of oxygen. Oxygen is colorless. Oxygen is colorless and odorless at room temperature. Oxygen supports burning. It's bluish liquid at minus 183 degrees centigrade used in scientific medical application. All these are chemical information about oxygen. Oxygen also support combustion, and it's a chemical process that we all know about. Then let's look at the oxygen ecosystem, which is more important to us as a microbiologist. Oxygen is very important in biodegradation. Oxygen is important in ecosystem. In biodegradation, oxygen is essential for aerobic bacteria to break down organic matter efficiently. Whereas in the absence of oxygen, anaerobic bacteria takes over, producing harmful byproducts like methane, ammonia, or hydrogen sulfide. These are toxic to the environment, which is not a good product. So oxygen is essential for biodegradation. That is why during biodegradation, there's what is called biological oxygen demand, BOD. The BOD measures how much oxygen is needed by aerobic organisms to decompose organic material. The higher BOD means more pollution is present. That means there is more organic matter to be degraded, lower oxygen availability, and struggling aquatic life. So in terms of oxygen demand system, the the availability of oxygen is essential for safer environment when microorganisms carry out biodegradation. And also in the aquatic environment, fish and other marine creatures rely on dissolved oxygen in water. They rely on the dissolved oxygen in water, whereby a low oxygen level in times of hypoxia can lead to dead zones in lakes and oceans where little life survives. So oxygen is a critical element which is essential for all forms of life. Oxygen in respiration, we have plant and animal that takes oxygen from air or water in aquatic species. We also need oxygen to it diffused to our cells directly, and also inside cell, oxygen power the cellular respiration to form carbon dioxide and water, which gives off carbon dioxide for plants, and plants also reciprocate by giving us the oxygen that we use for our own survival. Photosynthesis. In the photosynthesis and oxygen recycling, the plants absorb carbon dioxide, which is given off by humans when they breathe, and they start the photosynthesis. And the carbon dioxide plus water plus soda air usually result to the release of oxygen, which is a byproduct, and which is given off, and the humans also use the oxygen for their own respiration. And this respiration again becomes like a cycle, which is from humans to plants, and it continues. For humans, there's a lot of there's a lot of process, chemical activity involved, which release carbon dioxide and provide glucose for the body. So oxygen isn't just floating around randomly. It's woven around the earth's breathing process, making life sustaining for plant and animal, even for humans. The equation below shows how oxygen is being given up during respiration. And in oxygen cycle, we have two types of photosynthesis that are studied. We have the anoxygenic photosynthesis and oxygenic photosynthesis. Like I said, the equation summarizes photosynthesis equation. The process of photosynthesis takes place in the mesosphere of plants and inside the chloroplast. For anoxygenic photosynthesis, it occurs mainly in bacteria and archaea. We have different types of archaea and bacteria. We have the purple sulfur bacteria, the green sulfur bacteria, and heliobacteria. And this takes place in anaerobic environment like deep sediment, hot spring, or stagnant water. In anoxygenic photosynthesis, it doesn't use the conventional way. It uses light energy to drive photosynthesis, and it does not produce oxygen. It relies on a non-cyclic electron transport chain, meaning electrons are not reused, but they are passed along for chemical reactions. And in this case, it rather provides elements such as hydrogen sulfide, molecular hydrogen, and ferrous ion. And unlike oxygenic photosynthesis, which split water to release oxygen, anoxygenic types do not oxidize water. So in anoxygenic photosynthesis, oxygen is not produced as a byproduct. And it does have its own ecological importance in the sense that anoxygenic photosynthesis supports life in extreme or oxygen-free environments, maintaining microbial ecosystem. They also play a role in sulfur and ion cycling, which affects sediment chemistry and nutrient availability. Though it thought to resemble some of the earliest forms of photosynthesis, it is actually one of the other way of microbial photosynthesis, but it does not produce oxygen. These are organisms that are involved in anogenic photosynthesis. We have the green sulfur bacteria, we have the purple sulfur bacteria, and purple non-sulfur bacteria. And look at it, they usually have electron donor, which can be hydrogen sulfide, organic compound, and their byproducts can be elemental sulfur, or it can also be other compounds related to sulfur. And some they can actually switch between photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic. Example is the green non-sulfur bacteria. Example is chloroflexus. I've talked about the significance of anogenic photosynthesis previously. So they help in providing bacteria with energy source in the environment where oxygen is absent or limited. Example, in a deep ocean hydrothermal vents or anoxic sediment. They also help in contributing to sulfur cycle, hydrogen cycle, ion cycle, and other transformation into soil sediment. They also help in maintaining anaerobic ecosystem, and they play foundational role in anaerobic food web. They serve as a primary producer for anaerobic food web. And like I said, they use light energy to produce energy without oxygen, offering nutrients for other anaerobic organisms. For the oxygen cycle, we also have the oxygenic photosynthesis, which is the main life form of oxygen engine. It is a non-cyclic photosynthetic electron transfer process, and it uses water as its initial electron donor. And in this case, it produces oxygen as a byproduct. Oxygenic photosynthesis is responsible for the transformation of the Earth's primitive oxygenic atmosphere to one with molecular oxygen. Before photosynthetic organisms evolved, the Earth's atmosphere lacked free oxygen. So oxygenic photosynthesis by ancient cyanobacteria filled the air with oxygen, shaping the breathable atmosphere we rely on today. So the shift is known as the Great Oxygenation Event, which is a defining moment for the planet biosphere. Now, in oxygenic photosynthesis, we have example of plant life organism, which is phytoplankton. We also have cyanobacterium. We also have Prochlorococcus of the ocean, which contribute mainly to the life in the marine. The tiny marine was discovered in 1986 and accounts for more than half of the photosynthesis of the open ocean. So, in brief, as we conclude, the oxygen cycle is a natural process through which oxygen moves between the atmosphere, biosphere, lithosphere, and hydrosphere. Oxygen is produced mainly through photosynthesis, where plants release oxygen into the air. Living oxygen use that oxygen for respiration, returning carbon dioxide and water to the environment. In aquatic system, oxygen is dissolved in water and support marine life. It also bonds with other elements in rocks and soil. This continuous exchange helps maintain life and balance on the earth. If you have any question, you can post it at the comment section. Thank you as we prepare for the next class. Thank you very much.